I love chemistry and biology,
Okay.
but not mathematics. I don't know why.
Mathematics not science. Mathematics is its own thing.
Numbers.
It's much more than numbers, Doris. So if you think mathematics as a detective mystery,
Yeah.
where you have
You
to
have
find
to find
the X.
Yeah, the X. Yeah. I love finding the X.
I was born in Santos. It's very hot. I remember 44 degrees Celsius happening one summer there. It was often 40 degrees every summer. It's terrible though. It's horrible. So it's a city that is characterized by people doing lots of summer sports. So it is not a city that encourages science. Nobody in my family has had any inclinations for science. None of them were really that interested. It was kind of like a solitary thing for me. I was into it, but I didn't really have anyone to talk about it. At some point, my favorite show was Big Man's World. It was like this show for kids teaching science, and it made science look cool. It was like this mad scientist guy. It's like a live action show with actors. And they would do crazy experiments that you can follow along at home, and I love that. When I was about 4, I also started playing video games. My father had an Atari 2600. And when I was a bit older, like 7 or so, I started like wanting to make games. Now I had no idea. I didn't think it was something that I could actually do.
Yeah.
Around the time when I first played A Link to the Past, I wanted to make my own game like A Link to the Past. So I basically drew the dungeons, and each screen was like one piece of paper, and I had it laying on the floor. And then I cut little characters from comic books to use as my sprites, and I would like be planning how the whole thing would play.
Ultra nerd.
Wow. Yeah, I know I am. I would also like design fighting games, and I would draw like all the moves with stick figures of all the characters. So like, oh, let's say he's doing a Hadouken, so it's like this and this and this, whatever. The Super Nintendo was probably the most defining video game console of my childhood. I did have an Atari 2600 and Master System Super Compact, but the Super Nintendo was the big one for me. And Street Fighter 2 influenced me to also draw like sketches of fighting games, and you would have like all these different characters, and I would draw like stick figures doing their moves. But I think the game that ultimately influenced me the most must have been The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I love that game so much. I still do. As a child, I liked Link to the Past so much that I basically wanted to make a clone of it, and I didn't know how to make games, so I made that using paper. I ended up learning most of what I know of English from playing video games. When I was 11, I got my first computer. I saw an advertisement in a magazine for a program called Click and Play, which they promised would let you make games.
Click and Play is a revolutionary new concept in computer entertainment that taps into the imagination of its players by supplying them with all the parts and logic to create their own games.
And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can actually make games. So I got a copy, and I started making games, and I didn't really stop ever. My first job at all was in video games. I started in 2008. It was a games company in Brazil. In 2012, I moved to the UK. One of my friends from Brazil, Karen, she got a job at Bossa Studios in London. And some other of my friends got in touch with Bossa and asked if they had other openings. And they said they were looking for a programmer. So they recommended me. And Bossa got in touch. And they were like, hey, you want to come to London? I was like, yes, I did. So that was 2012, and I was with Bossa until 2016, when I left for Chucklefish. So I've not been in too many places, but it's been 10 years now in the industry.
Wow.
Chucklefish is a very unique company, I think, as far as game development goes. Most video game companies are very heavily reliant on crunch and have this very stressful atmosphere. Chucklefish is much more relaxed environment. People have lots of creative say. Everyone gets to participate in everything. It feels much more open. And yet, I still feel we are just as productive as a company that's crunching all the time. It might be a biased perception, but I've worked in many really good places before, but nothing felt quite as chill, I guess. And there was no place that felt like everyone was so enthusiastic about all the projects. I feel like I'm in a good point in my career. It's like I'm working on a game that I love. I'm using my engine to develop it, which is really fun for me. I'm the technical director of the company. I don't know where I want to go next. Right now, I'm so focused on just getting Wargroove done and out there and making sure it's the best game that I haven't even really stopped to think about where I want to go next. There's a saying that software is never finished, only ever abandoned. It kind of feels the same in a game. You could always work more on a game, and you always see all the flaws, even the flaws that most other people don't notice. So I don't know if there will ever be a point where I'm like, yep, I'm done, there's nothing else to improve, this is perfect. And even though I've been working on Wargroove for 1.5 years now, I still really, really enjoy working on it. So I could see myself just keep working on it for a long time, but there's other projects, there's more great ideas to come.
While I was in Canada, I saw this ad for Chucklefish, and then they were interested in doing an interview, and we did it over Skype first. The connection was so bad that there was no video, so I was just like playing with finger puppets while like everyone in the interview had their own finger puppet. And my partner was watching the entire interview, and when he turned to me after the interview ended, it was like, are you kidding me? You were like doing that in front of them? I was like, nah, the video wasn't working.